Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Our trip to Argus and my time on the PTR has really got me thinking about the big picture again. Now, without spoiling any patch content, let's just say this video is going to be a very relevant primer for the things that are going to be going down in this patch. So today we're going to talk about the Titans, what they are, what they did, and most importantly, what is up with them today, as of the most recent 7.2.5 lore of World of Warcraft. If you already know all of this and you want to hear about the spoiler content, you can check out this video, but other than that, let's get right into it. So years ago, the Titans were regarded almost as mythological, godlike figures, but things have in recent times changed. Now, for a long time, players also wondered, would we finally get to meet them, only to have the rug pulled out from underneath our feet. Not only are the Titans basically dead, but Azeroth itself is actually a Titan. Now, all signs are pointing towards threats so dire in scope that even Sargeras is afraid of them. In anticipation of that, we're going to do a Where They Are Now with the Titans, and we're going to explore the various ongoing plot lines that Blizzard have established and where they could lead, as well as a complete recap of what you need to know about the Titans. So, what is a Titan? Well, Titans are one of the first living races, and they come in two forms, World Souls and then the actual Titans. A World Soul is essentially a dormant Titan within the core of a planet. They are present in a tiny number of planets, and the planets themselves benefit from their energy. Now, a World Soul can become an awakened Titan, either naturally, it would seem, or by being woken by other Titans. They live and breathe arcane energy, and they are creatures of order, the literal opposite to Fel. Much like how, say, the One Ring would affect a Gandalf more than it would affect Frodo, the Titans are particularly susceptible to the Fel, as can be seen numerous times, most notably, of course, with Sargeras. So they are not gods. In fact, they are beings that can die, just like the rest of us. They just happen to be very old and very powerful. So now that you know what a Titan is, who are the Pantheon? What is that? Well, the Titan Pantheon seems to have been comprised of all of the awakened Titans. We don't know of any non-Pantheon Titans apart from Sargeras, eventually after he split with them. The Pantheon then was led by Aman'Thul. He was the first Titan to awaken, and at the start, he was alone, but he suspected that there were others out there like him, so he set out across the cosmos, finding worlds and ordering them and nurturing and awakening these new world souls so that he would basically have company and other Titans to order the galaxy with. Now, as time went on, he eventually managed to wake all of the known Titans, and in the process of doing so, many of their worlds were ordered. With there being too many worlds for the Titans themselves to watch over, Aman'Thul got the help from another race, the Constellars. We have only met one of these beings, that's Algalon the Observer, but the Constellars would essentially act as a link between the worlds that the Titans had ordered and the Titans themselves, allowing for messages to be sent and observations to be made. So the Pantheon had 7 members. Aman'Thul, the High Father, was their leader. Eonar, the Lifebinder, specialized in nature magic. Norgannon was their lore keeper, responsible for all Titan knowledge. Golganeth was the Lord of the Skies and the Roaring Oceans. Khaz'goroth was the Shaper and Forger of Worlds. Sargeras was the Defender, the Pantheon champion who would basically deal with military matters. And finally, Agrimar was Sargeras' second and eventually his successor. Now, sometime before Azeroth was found, Sargeras found out about the plans of the Void Lords, their use of the Old Gods, and how they targeted planets with world souls in them. He soon found one such planet and he decided to destroy it. Why? Well, if successful, the Old God infestation combined with the World Soul would have created a being far too powerful for basically any of them to stand against. So he destroyed this world, but when he told the rest of the Pantheon, they were very angry. So Sargeras stormed off. He was intent to solve the problem himself. Okay, let's talk about the Azerothian history. So the Titans came upon an unusually powerful world soul in Azeroth, but they found that the Old Gods already got to the planet. This wouldn't do, so the Titans waged war with the Old Gods. Now, most of the fighting was done by constructs of the Titans, because the Titans themselves are almost, well, they basically are planet-sized beings. So the first of the constructs that they were made were known as Watchers, and then 9 of these Watchers were created in the likeness of the various Titans, and then given some of their powers. Now, the Watchers we know in-game today. So overall, they were successful, the Watchers, in defeating the elementals that the old gods had enslaved, but they couldn't kill Yesharaj, the most powerful old god on Azeroth. So Aman'Thul reached down from the sky and ripped him apart, but in doing so, he ravaged a section of the planet, ripping it open and creating a channel for the World Soul's arcane lifeblood to seep to the surface. So the Titans realized that doing this again would really risk the death of the World Soul. They didn't want that to happen, so they chose to imprison the other old gods. Once the battle was won and they imprisoned the old gods, they began to order the planet, and they created a number of construct races to help them out, such as the Earthen, the Mogu, and the Vrykul. At the center of the new supercontinent of Kalimdor, they put the Well of Eternity, which is essentially the arcane lifeblood of the World Soul within, and that's why there's so much energy in it. With the world ordered, it was soon time for the Titans to continue onwards to a new planet, so the Keepers took up their stations in the various Titan installations, as did the other Watchers and the lesser constructs. A Constellar called Algalon took up residence in Ulduar, ready to manage the various different systems that were installed on the planet, including the reorigination device that they put in Uldum. They also chose to empower the dragons, hoping that they would be able to help keep the planet safe. So they chose the most powerful dragonflights that were about at the time and empowered their leaders, with each one of the leaders taking on powers from a specific Titan. So Neltharion and Khaz'goroth, Norgannon and Malagos, and then both Alexstrasza and Ysera were empowered by Aenar, and finally Aman'Thul empowered Norzdumu. This then brings us on to the current setup with the Titans. So, while the Pantheon had been ordering Azeroth, Sargeras had been thinking. He came to the conclusion that he needed to wipe out all life in order to prevent the universe from being taken by the Void Lords. Now, as the Pantheon's champion, he had imprisoned all the demonic races at Mardum. He knew he needed an army, so he traveled back there and he freed them all. And this pretty much meant that he was now the Dark Titan that we know today. Now, the Titans themselves, the Pantheon, eventually tried to confront Sargeras, and after Agrimar, his basically apprentice, was killed in an unprovoked attack, they decided to try to take out Sargeras. Didn't go very well for the Pantheon. They were all killed. Kind of. Norgannon sent their souls into the cosmos just before their bodies died. And those souls eventually found their way back to Azeroth, and essentially were absorbed by the Titan Keepers who were left there. Most of the Keepers had no idea what to make of this new surge of energy, so they sent messages to the Pantheon, but they got nothing in response. Ra, however, realized what had happened. He had been empowered by Aman'Thul, who seems to be one of the wiser ones, and perhaps he just recognized that that happened to be Aman'Thul's soul that went into him. It's worth saying that we don't really know what they mean by a soul. It's likely just, a bit of information encoded in a bundle of energy, or something along those lines. Anyway, he extracted what he could, and he stored it underneath the Veil of Eternal Blossoms, and then entered a long slumber, meditating on what he had learned about the fate of his makers. After a long time and the Curse of Flesh, Lei Shen found Ra. Ra had been silent for weeks until Lei Shen basically started insulting him, which woke up Ra, who then took Lei Shen deeper into the vault to tell him about what he had learned, probably assuming that, as a Titan creation, Lei Shen would feel similar to how he did. This ended badly. Lei Shen attacked Ra, put him in chains, took his weaponry, and extracted the soul of Aman'Thul, taking its power for himself. And then we move on to the modern day. So, a number of old god-related events did happen. We've got Deathwing, all that stuff. We've got Cthulhu, we've got Yogg-Saron, but they're kind of tangential to this video, so I'm going to move on. After the Throne of Thunder, players defeated Lei Shen, and they brought his heart to Rathian, who promptly ate it. Now, this meant that yes, Rathian basically ate the soul of the leader of the Titans, which gave him this vast wealth of knowledge, but it's kind of locked up inside his brain because he can't remember it, as was covered during Mists of Pandaria. We do know that a voice said,
"We must rebuild the final Titan,"
to him. So it is known that the Pantheon deemed Azeroth itself to be powerful enough to defeat this void threat, and that Sargeras thought she was too much of a liability, as her corruption would basically create a being that would be all of their doom. So that is basically the fate of Aman'Thul. He got eaten by Rathian eventually. What about the rest of them? Well, the other Titan Keepers, one of whom I just can't pronounce his name, Freya, Hodir, Loken, Mimiron, Odin, Thorim, and Tyr, might have stored the other Pantheon souls somehow, or at least they might have been able to if they talked to Ran. We do not know if they did. So really the status of them is currently unknown, though it is something that is likely going to be expanded upon in Argus. Ra himself is alive, and as is Algalon lore-wise, so with those two characters, Blizzard really do have enough of an open book to keep the Pantheon fully dead, bring them back fully, have us face off against them, or, make them a head in a jar that we can at least have a conversation with. Moving on though, Algalon of course would be able to communicate to the other Constellars if they are still alive, which kind of does seem doubtful, but it is a possibility. Our keepers on the planet might be able to wake Azeroth the Titan, though we do have to wonder what would happen there. What would happen if the planet basically woke up and turned into a big tall woman that was bigger than a planet? I'm sure that would be pretty bad for the people on the planet. We don't really know enough details there to really make a good determination. But as for Azeroth herself, well, Magni currently is her speaker. She has not really done that much recently, but she seems to be awakening. And this is a developing story that I think Blizzard will ramp up a lot in the very near future. In the Priest Order Hall campaign, she recognized that the Conclave would indeed serve the light well, and she gets Magni to bring the priests to the Primordial Observatory underneath the Maelstrom. There, the priests get a Seeker as their class mount. Now, the Seekers were the Titan Watcher mounts. So by doing this, Azeroth and the Titan, they clearly are aligned with the light, which means we've got to consider the interaction between the Naru and the Titans and how Blizzard could potentially develop that. I think this is even more interesting given the fact that Naru turn into a void form whenever they're heavily damaged, as seen in Oshugun, the Sunwell, and Auchindoun. As for the future of World of Warcraft, well, we have established that Rathian has absorbed the remnants of Aman'Thul's soul, and that the other souls, well, they probably do exist somehow in a bit of a form. We know that Azeroth is a Titan, and we can somewhat communicate with her. Algalon, Ra, and the other Keepers pretty much are all doing well, and they interact with players. We have had continuous hints about this old god stuff, especially with Il'gynoth and Xal'atath. So this storyline is picked up on in the patch 7.3 content, so many of the questions that you're asking right now are probably going to be answered soon. I'm purposefully playing a little bit dumb in this video for the guys who just want to know where we stand now in 7.2.5 so that they can enjoy the new information in-game kind of in the way that Blizzard intended to be enjoyed. So this all leads me to think that the next major plotline of World of Warcraft will be the struggle to wake Azeroth and her struggle with the Void. It will likely be sort of defining the future of the Warcraft franchise's IP, though we do have to stop and think for a second here. 10 years ago, we were defeating, right now, what we know of, pretty minor dragons and murlocs and bandits. Now we're going to space to destroy, the Burning Legion, while Magni, our friend, is talking to a planet. It's all getting a little bit bonkers, and you do wonder just how far they can push that ceiling before, I don't know, we're all flying Gundams or something. But whatever happens, it surely will be interesting to watch, and I do love talking about this wider cosmic lore, and especially whenever they weave in Lovecraftian cosmic horror elements, because that really is some of my favorite stuff. But anyway, guys, that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.